Willow Creek was the picture of suburban perfection, manicured lawns stretching endlessly, pristine homes, and a homeowners association that ruled with an iron fist, dictating everything from mailbox styles to the acceptable shades of flowers. At the center of this meticulously controlled world was Karen, the epitome of suburban conformity. Her life was a curated display of pressed linens, perfectly coiffed hair, and a garden so immaculate it could have been plucked from a magazine. But beneath the surface of her polished existence simmered a quiet unease, a disturbance in her otherwise predictable world. Her new neighbor, David. David was a software engineer and, notably, a black man, a fact Karen couldn't seem to overlook. He wasn't causing any trouble. In fact, he kept his lawn tidy, waved politely, and seemed entirely unfazed by the icy glares Karen shot his way whenever their paths crossed. But to Karen, David was an intruder, a disruption to the carefully crafted order of Willow Creek. When he began installing a high-tech smart lock on his driveway gate, Karen's simmering suspicion erupted into full-blown paranoia. "He's probably up to no good," she hissed to her friend Susan over their weekly brunch. Susan, usually level-headed, found herself nodding along, swept up in Karen's contagious fear. "Who puts a smart lock on a driveway gate?" "It's just not normal," Karen insisted, her voice dripping with disdain. What began as a whisper of doubt soon grew into a dangerous obsession. Karen convinced herself that David posed a threat, not just to her, but to the entire neighborhood. Fueled by prejudice and a warped sense of entitlement, Karen began documenting David's every move. She snapped photos of him working on the gate, whispered to neighbors about his suspicious activities, and painted him as a shadowy figure with unknown, nefarious motives. Her campaign of fear spread like wildfire. "I saw him bringing in boxes last night," she told another neighbor, Martha, her tone laced with faux concern. "Big boxes. I don't know what's in them, but it can't be good." She conveniently omitted the fact that the boxes were labeled gardening supplies and contained nothing more than soil and tools. Accuracy wasn't Karen's goal, persuasion was. She was building a case, flimsy and prejudiced, to justify her next move. The day David finished installing the smart lock, Karen reached her breaking point. She watched him test the system, opening and closing the gate with his phone, and convinced herself that his satisfied smile was a sign of something sinister. "He's probably going to start robbing houses, or worse," she muttered, clutching her phone. With trembling hands, she dialed 911. "I need to report a suspicious person," she said, her voice quivering with manufactured fear. She described David in detail, emphasizing his race and the unusual activity with the gate. "I'm afraid for my safety, for the safety of the whole community," she insisted. As the police car pulled up to David's driveway, Karen watched from her window, a smug smile creeping across her face. She imagined him being questioned, maybe even arrested, and the peace of Willow Creek restored. But what happened next shattered her carefully constructed reality. The officers approached David calmly, explained the complaint, and asked to see the smart lock system. David, though confused, cooperated fully. He demonstrated the system, showing how it was designed to protect his property from package thieves. He explained the app, the authorized users, and the activity log. What Karen didn't know, and what David had deliberately kept hidden, was that the smart lock was more than just a security device. It was a sophisticated trap designed to expose and deter exactly the kind of behavior Karen was exhibiting. The system recorded every interaction, every attempt to tamper with it, and every unauthorized access attempt. Hidden cameras captured crystal-clear footage of anyone approaching the gate, day or night. As the officers examined the system, they noticed something alarming on the activity log, a series of failed attempts to open the gate using a physical key, all occurring late at night. The hidden cameras had captured clear images of the person trying to break in, Karen herself, looking frustrated and determined. Armed with this evidence, the officers confronted Karen at her home. They showed her the footage of her attempting to tamper with David's property. Her face paled, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. She stammered, denied everything, but the evidence was undeniable. Karen was arrested, not for reporting a suspicious person, but for attempted trespassing and filing a false police report. As the officers led her away in handcuffs, a collective gasp rippled through Willow Creek. Her friends and neighbors watched in stunned silence, the woman they thought they knew exposed as someone capable of deep prejudice and deceit. Susan and Martha, who had so readily believed Karen's stories, were overcome with shame. They realized they had been complicit, blinded by their own biases. The fallout was swift. The HOA president launched an investigation, removing Karen from the board and vowing to make the neighborhood more inclusive. Karen stood trial, the evidence against her overwhelming. The prosecution presented the 911 call, the surveillance footage, and David's testimony, in which he spoke calmly about the impact of her actions on his life and sense of security. The jury found Karen guilty on all counts. The judge, in a stern rebuke, sentenced her to community service, anger management classes, and a mandatory course on racial sensitivity. He also ordered her to pay restitution to David, covering the cost of the smart lock system and the emotional distress he had endured. As Karen began her sentence, a quiet resolution settled over Willow Creek. David, though shaken, chose to stay in the neighborhood, determined to build bridges and foster understanding. The smart lock on his gate remained, a symbol not of fear, but of justice and the power of technology to expose the truth. Willow Creek, forever changed by Karen's actions, began the difficult process of confronting its own biases and building a more inclusive community. The incident served as a stark reminder that prejudice and entitlement can have devastating consequences, and that true community requires empathy, understanding, and the courage to challenge one's own assumptions.